Hello, Bob.
Pardon me for looking distracted, Mr. Buzzcut and friend, but they're running a
Weather Girl
that v
Marathon?
that Visa commercial with the smiling woman waving the spatula at
Oh,
you. I can't remember her name. It's like still nonstop, sun up to sundown. Visa with the smiling woman. Also, the New York Times in the past few minutes. You'd think they'd be, they'd have their hands full with the Gaza war, but they just within the past few minutes published an article with the headline, Alcohol May Be Ruining Your Orgasm. To which
oh.
I tell the newspaper of record since the 1850s, don't make me choose. Don't make me make a choice. This is like Jack Benny, your money or your life. And he goes, I'm thinking, I'm thinking. Bob and
Quarterback.
Kel CleverCast for the week of November 2nd. And I guess my first sports related question is: have you seen Wembanyama play yet?
Yeah. I've seen him play in the preseason. I was like, okay. But yeah, he's what they call a unicorn, right?
Exactly. I was just going to say something like that,
Yeah.
similar to an analogy about Otani, that he could be as transformative as Otani in his own way. And it also reminds me, oddly enough, of when Wilt came into the league, because Wilt was very tall. He was not the tallest. There were a couple of guys taller than he was in the 50s when he came in out of Kansas. But it was the things he could do. His frame didn't get in the way. He was so athletic. He had the athleticism of a guy a foot shorter, and he could bring the ball up and he could shoot these ridiculous with one leg raised fall away bank shots from 20 feet out, and then play against a guy like Bill Russell. They had that rivalry for about 10, 15 years. I don't think there's going to be a Wembanyama rivalry with anyone, let alone the usual suspect Holmgren right now, because I think that would look like two praying mantises pawing at each other, and neither of them seems strong enough to get any position under the boards. I'm watching what's happening under the baskets, and they're being held off by somebody usually with one arm.
They
They're going to
seem
have to
break
really focus on gaining some weight and some muscle mass and some strength.
they seem very breakable, yes.
Yeah, and also TV wise, I want to alert you to Hulu dropping Aquafina and Sandra Oh's show, Quiz Lady. It's a movie tomorrow. It's already been panned. I don't care. I love both of them. I'd watch them at anything. And right now, I am watching Lessons in Chemistry on Apple Plus. I was unfamiliar with the work of Brie Larson except for those Nissan commercials. I did not see the movie Room, for which she won an Oscar, but very impressive in this. And Bill Pullman has a son who's in the first two or three episodes. So I would
Yeah.
recommend Lessons in Chemistry. And there's going to be an HBO documentary on the life of Albert Brooks here in less than 2 weeks. So lots to look forward to. Also, The Crown. The ghost of Diana is supposedly going to be a character in the final season of The Crown coming up here in November. So it's a very big month. Now, have you heard the new or the final? They're calling it the final Beatles song, but I'm also reading that Yoko has a vault of the she's going to release.
Oh,
It's going to be like farewell Grateful Dead tours.
oh,
There
geez.
will never be one. She's going to release one per year. Anyway, did you hear it when it dropped today at 7 a.m. in the West?
I haven't dove in. I've read a lot about it. I have not listened to it. So I'm kind of holding off to just kind of build the anticipation. You have heard it, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was listening to the Beatles channel this morning at 7 o'clock my time, and it strikes me as if you remember this phase of Lennon's career, and incidentally, I saw the May Pang doc, and it's generally well done, cheesy in spots, and does not portray Yoko Ono sympathetically at all.
Of course.
But this song reminds me of mid 1970s, number nine Dream era, Walls and Bridges era, John Lennon ballad. But what do you want? It's AI. I don't notice any Beatles participation elsewhere in the song. I don't notice any, lead guitar work or any harmony. There's
Hmm.
this faux sort of Phil Spector symphony like they used on uh, Let It Be, Long and Winding Road, whatever it was, where Phil Spector thought it would be good to have an orchestra in there. I don't know. It just, it was like the last few unnecessary extra releases have been.
Yeah.
You have your hopes up for something, from the good old days, and it's gone. It's not going to happen anymore. So,
Right.
so that's where that is. Um, Came across this at the library. This is Ed Begley Jr.'s memoir,
Huh.
and what great stories he has to tell. Henry Winkler's just picked that one up today. It's out in the car. And Ed Begley, there's great pictures in here too. Um, a picture of,
Oh,
he's very green and vegan, Ed Begley. He's
sure.
into the whole
Electric
ecology
car.
thing, has been for many years. And yes, he has some cool anecdotes in there about St. Elsewhere and 6 Feet Under and the other series he's been on.
I was I was just watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he was featured in it. He was the doctor who was healing only when he wanted to heal people. Like he was on a plane, they asked for a doctor, and he said, "No, no, then it'll just be delays."
But wasn't he also on either Better Call Saul or
Yeah, it was Better
he
Call
he
Saul. It
that
was
that New Mexico office, that law
yes,
office that he ran with an iron hand, and he felt like his power had been usurped or something. He's just great
exactly.
in anything. He's just as
He is.
solid as it gets, Ed
Yes.
Begley. Anyway, there's this and his dad was a great actor too. Um, there's a picture in there of a vegan meal that he made for all of the Oscar nominees, male Oscar nominees for a particular year, and they're all gathered around the table. Maybe I can find it here because it is like a freaking hall of fame.
Oh yeah.
This the picture of these guys around the table. For some reason, many memoirs do not include pictures anymore.
Sometimes
This
they
one
don't. You're
does,
right.
thank goodness, because he's got some great stories to tell with the pictures too. But it was De Niro, Joaquin Phoenix,
Wow.
Alan Arkin.
Ooh.
Yeah, oh, here we go. Hope you can see this. There they are right there. I'll identify them now. Hugh Jackman, Robert De Niro, Alan Arkin, Tommy Lee Jones, Joaquin Phoenix, Daniel Day-Lewis, all at Ed Begley Jr.'s house for vegan dinner in the year
Wow.
2013.
A
They
vegan
were all
party,
nominated for Oscars.
but quite a sausage party. No women present? What's up with that?
I don't know. It's a stag deal, I guess. And then I'm reading this as well because this book was adapted for the stage and produced in New York, and we got to see the play with John Turturro last week called Sabbath Theater, about a puppeteer who, in typical Roth fashion, does not treat women as he should. I did not expect when I went to New York. It was two or three weeks, consecutive weeks of just supernatural phenomena in this trip to DC and New York. I didn't expect to see John Turturro naked, but he completely disrobed at the end of the play,
Wow.
and it caused me to ask my partner the first time someone undressed in front of you with the objective of being intimate. Did you think something? If so, what did you think? Did you say something from what you were thinking? What did you say? And the reason I ask this is because um, this was the first time the mother of my children more than 40 years ago undressed in front of me. And I actually said, I must have been pretty tipsy, because I actually said, these words came from my mouth. I said, wow, I didn't expect these. They were the most enormous, perfectly shaped breasts I'd ever seen. And what she was wearing completely disguised the fact that she was that well endowed. I actually said this. So I'll put this to you. Did you ever think anything positively or negatively, or ever say anything upon seeing someone who was a stranger to that point naked for the first time?
No, I'm typically struck dumb as usual, but the smoke coming out of my ears usually is what I'll usually emanate.
Yeah. What about guys you know to this day and maybe pal around with? Have you ever seen them undressed in a YMCA type situation?
Ah, boy,
And
that's
and
another.
did you find your eyes going there?
I try not to, honestly. I try to look away. It's very like driving past a car accident, I try to keep moving instead of being a gawker. So I don't know. I guess that's the way I'm made. I don't know. I've never stood at a urinal and peeked over the edge to see what's going on over there. I don't know. I guess I'm just
No.
not interested in the
I'm
male
not saying that
anatomy.
the opposite of that is adventurous, but you did grow up in Minnesota, which is
Mhm.
not exactly the home of intellectual adventurousness. So
Amen.
I think that we can explain it away that way. But there's no getting around, there's no looking elsewhere when a man who has held you in thrall for 90 minutes on a stage decides to take off all of his clothing and then wrap himself up in the American flag and then wander off in what's supposed to be the ocean to do away from with himself at the end of this play. Now think of all the places you've seen
Yeah.
John Turturro. This
Yeah.
is one of our top 10 most valuable actors, and he has decided to co-adapt Sabbath Theater for the stage. And also on stage with him is an excellent actress. You might remember her from Homeland. I don't know whether you ever watched Homeland,
Watched it
but
all. Yes.
Elizabeth Marvel is her
Oh,
name, and she did a
okay.
wonderful job also. It's mainly a lot of high-pitched kvetching, a lot of Jewish ranting and raving about women and the whole man-woman thing and all the ways that that can go sideways.
Yeah.
Sabbath
I
Theater.
think the last thing I saw John Turturro in was The Night Before. Is that what it was on HBO? It was he played a lawyer, and one of the things that was just very he had a really foot problem. That's what I
Hmm.
think about him. I just wouldn't want to see him naked, I don't think.
Well, I don't think the Turturro will replace the Rubarosa anytime soon when you ask for the pepper mill,
Mm.
but I could not do that. That to me is like the height of extroversion. The only step above that is Pornhub. And by the way, I found another couple that I'm predicting greatness for.
Oh,
They refer to themselves as, how does this go? Weed, sex, and travel. There aren't three people. That's just more their motto than anything else. But it's mainly them smoking weed, and or having sex and or traveling.
huh.
And the first video of theirs that I saw recently, one of the most erotic, and I think healthfully erotic, because no fluids were being exchanged, the most healthfully erotic image, I would say top 10 that I've ever seen. He was smoking dope while watching her fillet him. And he looked like El Chapo. He looked like, the scuzziest Latino dope dealer you could find, with the patchy beard and the Lee Van Cleef kind of dark cigarette, which is obviously pot, and what she had in her mouth was him, of course. And it was just such a lazy scene. And then sometimes he would take it out of his mouth, and she would take her mouth off of him, and he would put the joint in her mouth, and she would smoke it. And it was just, oh, it was just, I thought it was fabulous.
You really find him, don't you? Wow, we
Just total luck of the
just
draw. I don't get
stumbled
it.
upon it. You were just reading around.
I was about to rename that platform. Hey, what's with all the tattoos? Or why are you slapping her breast?
Um,
There's just a lot of weird behavior going on that platform. Did you know that there's a school of erotic thought that with videos attached where the guy enjoys during foreplay, during standing foreplay. If I've told you this already, please stop me. He enjoys the surprise of a swift knee to the nuts.
Oh my. Well, it takes all kinds.
Doesn't it though? Different strokes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, the John Turturro anecdote, by the way, is one of several really supernatural phenomena type occurrences during the recent road trip. Here's a great example. On the way back, Delta's 767 is its own design flaw, one big design flaw, at least in first class. The only thing that worked really amid all this, high tech was the TV set in the back of in the seat back in front of me, and that had to be rebooted 3 or 4 times to get it to work.
Oof.
So New York to LA, I have to have 4 episodes of Barry, 4 episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and some reading before I can touch down in LA.
Okay.
Here's how weird. Here's just one example of how weird it got. I'm watching the Curb episode where Larry is pitching the Hulu people on the Young Larry series.
Okay.
Larry excuses himself to go to the restroom. He puts the toilet seat up. It will not stay up.
Oh my gosh,
I
yeah.
finish the episode. I go to the restroom. This is first class lavatory, mind you, and the seat will not stay up. It comes down exactly like the one in the show. I just
Wow.
thought, well, I throw up my hands, what can you do? Isn't that nuts?
You didn't get up on the seat and try to
No,
stand
no,
up there.
you can't do that in
You can't. That's
in a
just insane.
you
Like,
can't do that in an airline lavatory.
yeah.
It's just that, as a matter of fact, that restroom was about the size of the elevator in the hotel where we stayed, 61st and 5th, the Pierre, a Taj Hotel. On one of our trips up to the magic 36th floor, a bow-tied dandy just makes it in as the door is closing with his Great Dane.
Oh,
So
geez.
it's me, my partner, this guy, his Great Dane, another woman who is a resident there being, taken to her floor, and the elevator operator. They're very old-fashioned with
Okay.
that. They have someone to ask you what button to push. They push the button, takes you to your room. So I learned my lesson long ago. I don't talk to New Yorkers unless it's in a commercial setting where they're compelled to be nice to you. If you try to engage them in conversation about, the time of day, it's not going to go well. Make sure it has to do with money they need from you, so they have to be nice to you. So the guy gets on with the Great Dane, and my partner makes the mistake of saying, "Oh, what a beautiful dog. I'm so glad you didn't dock his tail."
Huh.
And the guy could leave this forever. He could recognize her as a tourist. He could forget he ever heard it. He could, uh, get off the elevator and never, respond. But of course, he has to respond because he's a New Yorker and they have to be able to argue about something
Yes.
24 hours a day. Don't think the war in Gaza hasn't irritated the situation. He says, "Oh no, Great Danes' tails are never docked. You're thinking about Rottweilers, and that's barbaric." So this went on, all the way up to the 17th floor where he got off. And then we commented on it with the elevator operator going up to the 36th. It just doesn't pay to try to talk to them. My partner has a friend who they went to lunch at the friend's favorite place. They come in the door and the friend goes, "Somebody's at my table. That's my table. I'm going to say something to him." She goes over to the table and says, "You're at my table, dining alone at my table." And the guy goes, "Well, I happen to enjoy dining alone, but you're at my table. I need you to leave my table so I can take it for myself and my friend." And of course, he says, "Get lost." On another occasion, she walks in, and a lady from her synagogue, go figure, a lady from her synagogue says, Rio, we missed you at choir the last 3 weeks. Where have you been? Genuinely concerned, because these are
Yeah,
women in their 80s. Sometimes their health can go south, right?
sure.
And the partner's friend says, "What's it to you?"
Oh,
That to me is New York in a nutshell, man. You can't talk to them. Make
no.
sure it is
See,
is in the middle of a transaction, and then everything will go fine, and you can go your separate ways.
see, that's the thing. You've learned, not to do that. And I think you have to impart this upon your partner.
It's
Learn.
just, I don't know, very naive about that kind of thing. Speaking of the 36th floor, 1 year ago, May, they put us on the 36th floor, and I swore I'd never be on that floor again
Right.
because throughout the week, it was there was a room in between. Okay, there are 3 rooms on that level. Then there are rooms on the other side of those rooms, and then a couple of residences, like suites.
Okay.
Throughout the week, this is a year ago, May, a month before I went to the hospital. One woman's moaning dominated everything on the floor. I became convinced after several days and nights of this, coming through the pipes and the vents and probably the gutters and downspouts on the 36th floor outside the hotel, that it was just the woman and her gadgets, because I didn't hear a guy. You usually hear a guy grunting, right?
Yeah.
So I've had my fill of it. I'm leaving the room to complain, just as a guy on the other side of the room is leaving his room to complain. It's like a Neil Simon play. We get to know each other. He's Southern California too.
Oh
He's there for
my.
the he's there for the wedding of his daughter, and we chat about, and of course we're doing this while all hell continues to break loose in the room that we're standing in front of. He
So what
tells
did you
me
do?
later, after we both arrived home, tells me in an email that he actually did knock on the door to complain to the woman, promised that she would hold it down. So fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, we're checking out of the 36th floor, leaving for the final time, and I said to the partner, I said, everybody was really on their best behavior this week. I think we might come back to the 36th floor. And then I realized they had given us the sex room, the room that provided all of the complaints the year before, 3606, with rooms flanking it and residences flanking those.
Well,
Isn't that the nuttiest thing you've ever heard?
I'm more surprised that you didn't recognize it until you left the place.
Until we left, I did not realize where we were.
I mean, if you had recognized it, would you have stayed there? I mean, knowing what went on.
It's probably best that I didn't, because I
Yes.
don't like the feeling that I'm rolling around in
Oh,
crusty DNA provided by a constantly orgasming woman 14 months before that.
show a black
But
light on
that's
that place.
that's what you get. Hotels, it comes with the territory. But in
You're
this
right.
case, so does the Pierre burger. Top 5 burger in my life. If you're ever
Oh,
in the neighborhood, stop by and order the Pierre burger. Unless it goes against person's morals to spend 35 bucks for a hamburger, a cheeseburger in this case, a double double, if you've ever been to In-N-Out, it is top 5. It's along with In-N-Out and Whataburger and what's the other one? Oh, there's one here in LA called Herbs. It
hmm,
is really top 5.
okay.
So it's worth the inconvenience for the Pierre burger.
What makes it special? Type of meat? Do they put some special toppings on the cheeseburger?
Oh man, there's just, well, I would compare it in desserts to Krispy Kreme.
Oh,
It's just the kind of thing where you just can't believe something tastes this good.
okay.
And the combination of the vegetables and the cheese and the condiment and the French fries are fabulous. They're the kind of fries that not like well, in a way yes, like Burger King, in a way not. They're crunchy on the outside, tender on the inside, and they're stringy. Okay, and they're served in a kind of a cone lined with paper. Very snazzy presentation. Get the Pierre burger, have one, put it on the bucket list because it is well worth the trip and the expense. We went to Cafe Carlisle for a John Pizzarelli show. John Pizzarelli and his wife were playing the guitar and the piano and singing and stuff. And here's another one of two strange lounge stories. This was called premium seating. It was at a table that was kind of a common table with 12 chairs on each side. We're facing the person that we came with, right? I looked down at the end of the table past much younger people and noticed that there were four little old ladies. When I say little old ladies, I mean my age, there as a group. And I said to the partner, I said, you know what? I think I could count four women who have lived in New York for the past 40 plus years that I have been to bed with. Wouldn't it be amazing if even one of those four was one of those women? And there's no way I could recognize them. I was reached by text the other day by a former college classmate who said, I found Jenny. She's in New Jersey, and sends me a picture of Jenny. And I'm going, I wouldn't know this was Jenny. You know, I wouldn't know her from a coal bucket. You just don't recognize people. Have you been to any reunions?
Oh, yeah.
To where you would be called upon to recognize someone you haven't seen in decades?
Oh, totally. All the time. Yeah. It's like people who had lost a lot of weight, people who have gained a lot of weight. Yeah. There's all shapes and sizes.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Next week, I hope to have Jim Leinfelder back with us to tell us about his Wegovy experience. Wegovy and Ozempic, as you know, are the two means of weight loss that cost about $1,000 a month for people who aren't married to doctors as he is, and get some sort of break on the insurance. Supposedly, by that time, he will have lost 50 pounds since we last saw him. So be prepared for how emaciated, how Serbian death camp in the 1990s he's going to look.
Because I'm sorry, he was a fit gentleman to begin with. I mean, I don't know. Very strange.
I thought so too. I thought he was robust, but he felt like he was nearing some sort of obesity level of intake and theft. And so now he's 50 pounds to the good.
Obviously, he has a mental problem.
I don't know. We'll take that up with him at that time.
Please do.
One of the women 40 plus years ago, I spent the night with, lived on Riverside Drive in New York. No sleep was had during the night, and pot was consumed.
Oh,
and I remember today,
weed, sex, and travel.
Travel, that's exactly right. Kind of a harbinger for what passes for reality on Pornhub. I remember trying to get down the stoop of her building the morning after, and I'm thinking, if I were Joe Namath, I would have to play a football game today. This was late 70s, early 80s. I think he was still playing, not for the Jets, probably, for some other team, the Rams or something. But I'm thinking, can you imagine what tremendous athlete a person would have to be to burn that candle at both ends and then catch a ride to Shea Stadium to play quarterback for the Jets on injured knees after you spent all night on your knees or on someone else's?
I know.
That's pretty damn impressive.
That's a lot to ask, but he could do it. What was the name of his bar back in the day? Remember what?
Bachelor's 3.
Bachelor's 3. That's it. Yes.
And I'm sure on YouTube, a person could find his tearful resignation from the NFL because he felt that Pete Rozelle had singled him out for attention for, just a little old fact like consorting with mobsters.
Oh,
at his at his
who didn't back then?
Bar and grill. Yeah. Bachelor's 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then he took it back. He did what a lot of celebrities do now. They pop off and then they apologize. And so he apologized and got back in Roselle's good graces and back in a Jets uniform, and the rest is history.
So I love those. I read his bio and I was like, anytime there's a great beginning, middle, and end. I mean, the fact that his life, and then it ended with the whole Susie Susie Colbert thing. That was,
Oh, that was horrible, wasn't
I
it?
know, right? It's just like all the stories. This man,
If
what
that
a
was you
life.
or me, if that was you or me, we couldn't show our faces in public because we have something called humility and dignity. And
Well,
now this man is the
speak for
face of
yourself.
Medicare. He's the face of Social Security. The five
Right.
most terrifying words for any TV viewer in this era is, "Hi, folks, Joe Namath here."
Hmm.
Because you know you're going to get the lecture about improving your Medicare setup with the government.
Well, and
You
Tom
know,
Selleck is everywhere now too, on with his
yep,
old reverse mortgage mumbo
exactly,
jumbo.
exactly.
Unless we forget John Hines locally. So yeah, they're coming at us from every direction.
John Hines is still working in the Twin Cities. I thought he had retired.
He's doing the infomercials. He's doing the same thing that Tom and Joe are doing. This pop, you know.
Has anyone other than me ever stayed retired after they retired?
Uh, yeah, I don't even know. I don't think so. No, everybody comes back in some form or another. You know, what did they say?
Even the
Old radio guys never die; they just fade away.
even the old the popes, the succession of popes at WCCO, they didn't stay retired. They came back and did a little more soft shoe before they died.
I think that's about right. Yeah. Although
Check this out.
Dave Lee
In a related item, yesterday I noticed on I think it was the New York Magazine platform, that Kim Kardashian was supposedly innovating a kind of bra with built-in nipples. And I'm thinking, I've heard of this somewhere before. This business model has been innovated elsewhere in some other bygone day. Who did that? And then I realized, and apparently they're still working for Hubbard's FM Talk.
Oh yeah.
Lori and
Lauren
Julia,
Julie,
the
yeah.
nipple chicks,
I
and I reached them through that station at their website, and I said, I think I think if you still have licensing in effect on this product, I think that your your legal right to this idea is being challenged at the IP level. And the woman who's doing this has really deep pockets. You might want to consider suing her. So, we'll see how it goes. I didn't mean to, insinuate myself into their lives. I mean, they probably don't even remember my name, but I just felt they should know. They would find out about it eventually because Kardashian is such a global entity, right? They would
yeah.
find out that this product is out there when they actually, if I'm not mistaken, uh, attempted to popularize this. This was, what would you say, 20 years ago? They were called the nipple chicks, these two
Yep.
women.
You're right. They're still at it. They're still on 107.1. So go figure. It's some things I don't know. I don't get it.
Today's
Lori and
guest,
Julia.
Fancy Ray McCloney, as we go
Yep.
back in time. I can't even tell you the call letters for the station. I was just so amazed that they still were working. That the Hubbards hadn't gotten tired of you, because eventually the Hubbards will get tired of you, and
But
you'll be
isn't that
gone.
it's got to be some sort of no soul type thing where they just like are bending over backwards constantly doing what the Hubbards tell them to do,
Mm,
which you didn't. Good on
right,
you. But some
right.
people just keep putting up with that for job security. And I don't know, man. I can't imagine. I don't know.
Just occurs to me, I left something out when I talked about the former college classmate who I see very rarely. Um, texted me about she had found Jenny in New Jersey. Uh, Jenny is Virginia. I won't tell you her last name because people would try to look her up and give her problems. She is a niece of Bob Hope.
Oh,
And I told my friend Margie, I said, I think about Jenny every time I drive to Palm Springs because I drive down the 111 and which is right under Bob Hope's old home, which is now owned by Ron Perelman, former husband of I can't think of the actress now. I forget her name, but
yeah.
anyway, yeah, Bob Hope's niece. I went to college with her. Also, someone I haven't seen in 10 or 11 years. This is the spookiest, I think, of all the spooky coincidences during the New York residence in the past couple of weeks. How would you feel if you were in a hotel bar or lounge. You're chatting amongst your friends, you're tippling, you're nibbling, and out comes the lounge musician to play piano and sing for you. And she is the spitting image, a dead ringer, a what's the term? Doppelganger
Yeah.
for a former girlfriend of yours. How
Oh,
spooked out would you be over that?
I guess, is it the way you remember her or the way she would look today?
Right down to the little black dress that the woman played the piano and sang in. A little black
Wow.
dress was owned by this woman 10 to 15 years ago.
It took
Probably
you
my
back.
last, the final meaningful relationship before driving to California. I had to take a picture of the woman from
Oh,
long
that's not
distance, and the
creepy.
woman sensed her picture being taken and looked up and smiled. And
Oh,
so I text the picture to the woman I
the
haven't seen in 10
picture.
years. And I said, I just thought you should know that someone who looks very much like you is playing the piano and singing in the hotel bar at the Pierre, a Taj hotel. She texts me back within 2 hours,
Have you
having not
tried the
heard from
Pierre
me
burger?
for 10 years. No, I think this particular girlfriend offered something called the muffburger, which was equally,
Oh, you
which,
always have to go there
which,
after I do good one. You guess one up me all the time. I tell you.
which was equally nutritious and delicious. She texted me back to say, wow, I wish my arms looked like that, because this woman who was playing the piano and singing was probably in her 30s or 40s, right? And the woman who I'm corresponding with at that time is in her mid 50s now. So she, did not take it the wrong way. She was actually flattered that this woman would remind me of her, and to show her how closely she resembled her, I texted the picture with my comment. So, all in good fun. But once again, spooky stuff like that every day in some way. Listen to this. As I was going back into the hotel after a walk, I swear to you, if it wasn't him, it was someone who looked exactly like him. I thought that coming through the turnstile, the turnstile that you go through in a fancy hotel, that a person can be pushing his way out of as you're pushing your
Right.
way into the hotel.
Rotating doors. Yeah.
Brad frickin' Newman. I could swear it was Brad.
Brad? The Brad? Wouldn't that have
And
been
you know what?
something?
I wouldn't put it past him to have the money to stay there, because a year ago, May, this was the original sex room complaint week. I saw Tony Hawk in the lobby.
Oh,
Yes, Tony Hawk, the sidewalk surfboard or whatever it's called, skateboard impresario in
didn't his
the
son or daughter just marry somebody as famous as son or daughter? I don't know. Am I thinking of somebody else? You don't know what I'm talking about.
um
No. Okay,
David
forget it.
Beckham's son. David Beckham's son just married somebody. Could that be what you have it confused with?
It's possible. I'll do my
Tony
Google.
Hawk.
Tony Hawk.
Yeah. So
Fascinating.
anyway, I wasn't able to get a pen pal thing going with the guy on the 36th floor who I was getting to know, who was from Cheviot Hills, another part of LA County. But we exchanged
Oh,
emails the week after, and then, kind of drift apart. If people don't want to be friends, what can you do?
here it
So,
is. Riley Hawk, son of Tony Hawk, just married Frances Bean Cobain.
oh my God, that's big.
Yeah. So
Is
there
it
you go.
hard to believe that Frances Bean is of marriage age now? It's like she grew up with us.
Well, it is. I mean, she is 31, as is Riley Hawk. So there you go. But boy, she's gorgeous.
And she grew up without a dad. I mean, it was 31 years ago. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Listen, that is a younger but improved version of her mother, if you ask me.
Right.
Her mother
Exactly.
always looked kind of part-like, if you ask me, with the exaggerated features and whatnot.
Yeah.
But 31 years ago, her father ended it.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Never really knew him. Um, It is amazing that what I hear too is like all the kids are listening to Nirvana, or Nirvana's making some sort of comeback with the Gen Zers today, because they're buying the
Yeah.
albums, whatever, listening to the music on
Well,
TikTok or whatever they do.
it's like the song that they played in All That Jazz, the Bob Fosse movie from decades ago. Everything old is new again.
Mm,
The thing in Israel, I realize it's not funny. I prefer funny stuff. But
right.
man, from the day it started, October 7th, I saw Israel's 9/11, plain as the nose on Barbara Streisand's face. What's his name? Netanyahu did not
Netanyahu.
keep his country safe. And then he says, okay, because you've made me look bad, I'm going to level the area where you live. It's as
Yeah,
simple as that. It's just 9/11.
I
Everything
know.
old is new
You
again.
you can't go to war with terrorists. I don't know why people keep trying this, but well, we got to keep doing it every time.
So depraved, they would hide among the civilians, take them captive. You can't bomb me because I have your hostages. And I'll also hang out in hospitals and under hospitals. So if you bomb them to get to me, you're killing innocent people. It's a
Right.
war on civilians and children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got people on all sides so upset that I could spend all day on Twitter having my head bitten off by people I'm trying to agree with. I've
Right.
never seen anything like it. This is the part that is not new again. They're going after delis here. Cantor's Deli in the Fairfax district near the Grove, graffiti, anti-Semitic graffiti on Cantor's Deli.
Mm.
It's not like it's silly enough that the right wing is going after librarians, you know, and immigrants, but the anti-Semitic right and left are marking up delis, if you can believe that.
Unbelievable.
I mean, man, if I'm in Cantor's Deli or in Nate and Al's in Beverly Hills or Mort's in Reseda or Froman's in Santa Monica, and you come by and you think you want to abuse that place, you better be prepared to get a Byrna, BYRNA, non-lethal round on your scrotum. It will not kill you, but you will wish you were dead. Leave
Some
my
people
delis alone.
some people like that punch to the scrotum, Bob. Remember that.
Well, I don't know if gunplay on Pornhub. This is just the occasional surprise knee.
Oh.
Isn't that a weird thing though? You're getting all fluffed. She's fluffing you in a standing position,
And
and then
then,
she shoves a knee
oh,
into your groin, which you would think would completely just disable you, just reduce you to rubble, a puddle. It's just
but
some people are getting off on that and getting off on watching it.
I know. And then thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. May I have another. It's they more and more.
Have you seen the documentary? I think it's on HBO Max or just Max.
Mm-hmm.
On it's several years, maybe many years old by now, called Look at the Pictures, about the photographs of Robert Mapplethorpe.
No, I
There's
didn't.
some pretty strange images in those photographs of leather gay society as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not like but of course they're all gay. I mean, they're not straight people in the photos. Whereas with Pornhub, they are gradually working some trans people in,
Okay.
and they have one bus. It's kind of a joke bus where they bring a guy into the bus who thinks he's about to get laid, and there's a beautiful girl in a bikini,
Yeah.
and you'll never guess what happens.
Oh,
They blind
yes.
they blindfold him,
Oh.
and she's not the one filleting him.
Oh.
And so when he realizes that he's been slipped a Mickey, he demands to be allowed out of the bus.
I tell you, slipped a Mickey couldn't mean more like what it is.
He will walk home rather than stay in the bus with those deranged occupants of the vehicle.
You worked with a guy named Slippery Mickey back in the day, didn't you? Back in the
Now you're
70s?
thinking of Lyle the Human Sundial. Lyle the Human Sundial made some movies that, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You could tell that when he was on his back, that his erect phallus would cast a shadow that would lead you to believe it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Chatsworth, California, which is where most of the porn in America is still produced.
Still
Lyle
to
the
this
Human
day.
Sundial, not to be confused with Don's Johnson or Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh, I could go on like this for hours.
I I have others. I mean, I
I
have
know.
other
You could
names.
write. You could write a book. You probably have written the book.
When and nice segue. Are you reading any books these days?
Let's
Since
see.
I mean, it's been 3 weeks since we talked. Have you?
I finally picked up the book you recommended.
Oh, nice.
I've not started it yet, but it's on the reading list.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, that guy's in prison,
Is he?
or
I don't know.
or should be, or is on his way there. But of course, I say that every day about Steve Bannon, and he apparently he's never going to prison. He should be in prison. But yeah, that guy. You know the old Dylan quote: "To live outside the law, you must be honest." This guy was this guy was honest in that he was very upfront about how dishonest he was.
All right. Well, I'm sure it's a very titillating read.
Picked up the new Dylan book, Mixing Up the Medicine,
Right.
at a reception the other day at the Fetterman Gallery in Santa Monica. Uh, it can be had now at what, a 30% savings on Amazon,
Okay.
and it's like 600 pages
Hmm.
of unreleased photos of the person who I now am convinced it used to be Muhammad Ali. I think Bob Dylan is the most photographed human being alive for the past 60 years. I can't imagine anyone being, because I've got another coffee table book about the man, and these are supposedly heretofore unpublished photos. So consider it for a
I
holiday
will.
gift of some sort.
Well, you mentioned earlier the Henry Winkler bio, and I was at a
Yep.
bookstore and I picked it up, and I was surprised at how light it was because this man
Yeah.
has had quite a career, both
Yep.
with the Fonz and Happy Days to everything he's doing today in the comedy world. And
Yep.
it looked like it was literally
I,
150 pages.
I think he probably left some really juicy stuff out.
I'm guessing.
I mean, the stuff that he put in from the excerpts that I've seen have been pretty eye
Tame.
attention getting,
Oh, okay.
but not in a smarmy way or anything.
Okay.
He tells some stories about his wife and kids that I find entertaining, and you would
I
too
would
because
too.
you have a wife and kids.
Mm-hmm.
So
All
yeah.
right. I'll look into it.
Um, I had another book in mind to promote that apparently it's not going to occur to me to promote. This was the same drill like, 20, 30 years ago. As soon as the show ended, I realized something that I wanted to say and forgot to. I should probably take notes. I did not take one note for this because I knew, if I could remember what happened at DC. Speaking of which, took a train for the first time. Ever take a train
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah. It's
from where to where?
LA to San Diego.
Okay. I'm
And
familiar with
also
that.
Chicago, but that seems like taking it from O'Hare to downtown.
You know what? Now that I think of it, LA to San Diego would not pass through Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara's in the opposite direction. That's the train that I'm accustomed to seeing
Okay.
whistling through that town. Was this Amtrak that you took?
Yes, yes.
LA to San Diego, and where else?
I've taken Chicago. What is that? The L? What's the one in Chicago that goes from the airport
Yeah,
downtown Chicago?
right.
I've taken
Okay.
DC. Wherever the local transportation is.
Yeah. DC to New York was ours.
Hmm.
And I wound up in a seat, a shared booth where I had to face someone
Okay.
in one of those masks that makes you look like a
Oh,
chicken. There
oh.
are people now who can't get over their mask tyranny addiction, and they'll never get past it, and they wear the mask everywhere. And this was a husband and wife who got off in Newark, and they're wearing the fancy industrial high octane grade mask that registered nurses wear that make you look like a chicken, make you look like you have a beak. And
So
I had to look at that
pretentious.
for 3 hours.
Hmm. So do you mind riding backwards with your going with
It
facing
had no
backwards?
impact. I was told that it might have an impact on me, and it did not. I'll tell you who I saw on that train. Dominique Foxworth, who is a commentator on ESPN, on those shows called what is it? Get up or let's go, or
Morning pizza,
come
that
on,
sort of
or
thing. Yeah,
wake
yeah.
up, or good morning football, or something like that. His name is Dominique Foxworth, and I guess he commutes from
How
DC to New York,
how
or
do
vice versa.
you don't watch that every day? How do you recognize these people you see maybe once or twice? It's fascinating to me how
As a
you
matter
pick
of
this.
fact, he passed me to go to the restroom, and I got my phone out and opened it to the Dominique Foxworth page at the ESPN platform.
No, you
I was gonna
didn't.
I was gonna confront him with it as he walked past me. I put it right out there on my tray, on my
Mm,
the thing above my lap, so that he could see it as he walked past, and he paid it no mind whatsoever. So that's what I get for trying to confront people with their true
celebrity.
identities. Yeah, even on transportation is where you can see, today's um real people type celebrities, people who take the same modes of transportation that you and I do, not like the ones with the private aircraft, Elon Musk and Kardashians and, people, Taylor Swift. Oh, by the way, Kansas City plays,
Miami,
who is it? Who?
Miami, Miami. Don't they in
Miami and
Frankfurt, right?
Frankfurt this weekend. Here's my question.
All right.
Will she be there?
Yeah, it's Frankfurt, man.
Oh,
That's the place where they
oh,
go. The only place she
oh.
hasn't gone now, as of now, is Minnesota. Why not Minnesota? You've even been to Minnesota.
A
Why
couple
can't
of
Taylor?
weeks ago, it was in Kansas City, but the Chargers had the ball. And even with the Chargers having the ball, they were getting a shot of the suite. And I just can't have that. I need to be able to watch a football game without that, without the prom queen watching
Oh,
the homecoming king
oh, must be
catch touchdown passes. How
it.
far have we come when that's the
It must be
case?
terrible for you.
Do you think that she will go to Frankfurt and cause
Yes,
a scene there?
yes.
Let me tell you something. If Kansas City goes to the Super Bowl again, I'm out. I'm not
Oh,
even going
out.
to Vegas for a day to
You're.
bet on it, to leave a bet there.
Oh,
I'm not watching it live on TV. I'll just have to, get periodic
well.
score reports on the ESPN website because I
If
don't want any part of this.
if they play the same way they did against Sean Payton's ass
Yeah.
Broncos,
Well, well,
then
didn't they do
they
that?
won't
Didn't
make.
they do that twice in a row against Denver? Didn't they
I don't
play
know.
Denver 2 weeks
That's
before that and
that's the
were
thing.
almost defeated?
I don't understand this year. Buffalo goes out and they lay an egg. I mean, Philadelphia is 7-1, but they look like they could lose just about all the games they've won. So I
Through
just
the first 5 games, there were several teams that looked invincible. Now it's a select group of mere mortals surrounded by some of the ugliest football teams ever
agree.
put together. I
There's
mean, like tonight, Thursday
yeah,
night, November 2nd, Pittsburgh and who? Tennessee?
Tennessee.
Pew wee.
Well, the Will Levis situation is interesting to see if he's a real good quarterback. He threw 4 touchdowns last week, so he could be a guy. I don't know. Are we
It
going to
occurs to
touch on the
me,
Minnesota quarterback situation?
did you ever think that you would see the day that you would miss your
Kirk
starting
Cousins.
quarterback? Because your team is doomed now. You realize that.
It's
Although
an
Dobbs, I
amazing.
saw Dobbs defeat well,
We,
you and I
we
both
yeah,
saw
we were there
Dobbs
together.
defeat
That's
the
the only
Dallas
game I've seen him
Cowboys
play.
in Arizona. He's a serviceable quarterback.
Isn't it amazing? The only game that he won was the game that cost us the most money. Isn't that sad? It's a situation where I should really be upset that we signed him.
That is, that's a spooky coincidence on a par with the ones that I suffered in DC and New York City this past few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That Dobbs, you should be reunited with Dobbs again at your Vikings stadium.
That
What are the
alopecia
odds?
MFer.
It occurs to me to end the this edition of the podcast with another trip down memory lane because I referred to muffburger, unless I referred to furburger, but not Brent Musburger a few minutes ago. And it kind of goes hand in hand or hand in condom with my question to you a while ago about have you ever exclaimed anything upon seeing a person naked for the first time, whether it's a guy friend in a YMCA or a woman or a man, what have you, that you're about to be intimate with. I don't, I don't know that I'm the only person to confess this, but in the early days of realizing that because I do not have a sense of smell, I lost it in high school to a disease called sinusitis. Through college forward, I've never been able to smell a lick. And as a result, ironically enough, I've become very good at licking because I have no sense of smell and I excel at oral sex. And so I'm going to confess to you now in closing the
Let's close the
the
prayer.
podcast that the first time I realized that I was good at this and that I could tell that I was helping the person who belonged to the affected area with her pleasure, I remember thinking, boy, that cigarette is going to taste mighty good. That's what went through my mind as that was going on. And that I think is an uplifting, life-affirming note on which to end the podcast, unless you have
I
an
have a
addendum
question.
or
I have a
a
question, sir.
benediction of some sort.
So with your lack of smell,
Yep.
have your other senses been heightened because of that? Is
Well,
your taste, can you taste the Pierre burger better? I mean, are certain things just enhanced?
I'm going to say that roughly 50 years passed since it was determined that I would never smell again. And
Mhm.
during that time, my sense of taste became so heightened that twice I was considered obese, in
Oh,
excess of 250 pounds.
well,
And
that
that
would
is a
explain it.
great segue to a cross promotion of next week's podcast with Jim Leinfelder on the subject of weight loss.
Well, I hope having him on, he'll be able to prescribe, or not prescribe, but send us some pills to give it a try and give it a whirl, as it were, and see how it
Right
goes.
now, I'm on something called Rybelsus. As a matter of fact, during the opening moments of this podcast, I was dinged or pinged or whatever the term is by CVS to tell me that my Rybelsus was ready. I take
Rybelsus.
the maximum dosage is 14 milligrams per day, which is what I take, and but it's very gradual. It's like 2.5 pounds a month, which to me over the course of the year is 30 pounds, and I'm just fine with that. I don't understand the crash diet thing. I'd love to know how the Wegovy and Ozempic people are maintaining after they finish their little shots. That's one of many questions we'll have for Jim next week.
If you advertise Rybelsus, you could say, I'm Bob Yates and I rub elbows with Rybelsus. Rub elbows with Rybelsus. Get it?
Rebelbos with Rybelsus. That is very catchy, Kel. I'll bring that up
The
with
sales
their
team.
ad agency. This edition of the Bob and Kel CleverCast, ironically enough, is brought to you by a foodstuff, Gradke Latke, the official potato pancake of the doomed Minnesota Vikings. So long for
Oh,
now.
bye.